Well, the field was rainy, but that did not stop big play Penn State to roar past Utah with a big win in the Rose Bowl. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Slasher U. I'm your host, Christian Rao, here with my co-host, Steve Feck. And we had to talk about this one here. If you have been paying attention to Slasher U throughout the college football season, you know the hatred for Steve Feck and Penn State. And I had to make sure we put this recap on here because Penn State gets the win here, 35-21. They moved to 11-2 on the year, so the only losses they had on the year were Ohio State and Michigan. Sean Clifford, I mean, he looked really good in this one. He is now tied in Penn State history for most wins in program history. He got a standing ovation when he was leaving the field. It's teary. It was actually a really touching moment for Sean Clifford. I think he deserved it after this season he had. He had some tough times, but Steve, I'm going to give you the mic here. And I know you have so much to say and so much praise for the Nittany Lions.
Yeah, well, I didn't even know that Sean Clifford was still playing for Penn State. I thought he went in the transfer portal or declared pro early because he disappeared for big, huge chunks of this season. You know, what is this love for Sean Clifford? Okay, if you're, and again, I'm not exactly being very balanced and fair reporting here. I have a truly pathologically deep vendetta, right? Exactly. I want a scene from The Godfather, you know, like at the end where you're killing off all of Penn State football coaches or whatever. That's what I dream of at night. But they played they just played a terrific game. I didn't watch it, all of it live. I was finding excuses as to not to watch the game live. And then, of course, you were so kind to inform me about how the game was going, and we decided we had to have this game. But let's put it in perspective just real quick. Let's put all my hatred away just for a second. Utah had the best scoring defense and the best rushing defense in the Pac-12.
Yeah.
And say what you will about defenses in the Pac-12, but still, I mean, Utah has a great defense. Penn State basically played as if there was no defenders there, that there was just tackling dummies out there. And, you know, they had two big plays that set the tone you referred to earlier. The 87-yard touchdown run by Nicholas Singleton. It was an 88-yard pass connection between Clifford and Keandre Lambert-Smith, which was just a beautiful thing to behold. And, you know, I saw this stat and I had to actually look it up because I even though I saw it in three different really reliable sources, I didn't believe it. That was the first time in Rose Bowl history that there were two 80-plus yard touchdowns in the same game.
And it belongs to Penn State.
Yeah, I mean, right. I mean, you think about it, you got people like Mike Garrett and O.J. Simpson playing in there and Jim Plunkett and all of the, you know, all these great players that played in the Rose Bowl. And it was Sean Clifford and Penn State that actually set that record. That's just unbelievable. I'm literally having chest pains. I'm really concerned my heart device is going to go off.
This is how I will say the pass was gorgeous, right?
Yes.
But the run to me was really where it's at. And that Nicholas Singleton, I mean, we get some really good football for a few years with him, maybe if we're lucky. I mean, he's only a freshman right now, but that's crazy. You talk about Utah and their run defense, how great they were this season, and then a freshman comes in and runs $120 on you on only 7 carries. I mean, that is just insane. This guy couldn't get tackled. There was multiple times in this game where you could not tackle him. And Katron Allen looked good too. And guess what? Katron Allen, he's a freshman. I mean, Penn State, there were some moments in time in history with the Nittany Lions that they were known for their running backs. I think we're going to see it again.
Agreed.
These Penn State Nittany Lions has some good backfields, and I think that's not going to change for a few years because I don't see either of these these players going anywhere. Penn State's going to be a really good running team next year. I'm interested to see what happens with who replaces Sean Clifford and who plays quarterback for the Nittany Lions next year, because if they find a solid signal caller, I think they're right back in the mix of things. I think they're right back in the same boat they are right now, where the only step they got to get over, the only hump, the only mountain, if you will, in this case, it's Mount Everest, that they got to get over Michigan and Ohio State. And even if they find a way to get over one of them next season with a new signal caller, with the running backs they have, and I'm sure they're going to bring in some good transfers as well. We already saw some good names in the transfer portal committing to the Nittany Lions. Yeah, that's an interesting concept. I really am interested what happens with Penn State. No bias, no hate aside, Steve. This Penn State team really has what it takes to be in the running in the Big Ten next year. They really do.
Absolutely, because if you think of it, aside from Ohio State and Michigan, put the two Titan teams aside, there are no other teams in the Big Ten that are better than Utah, and Penn State took it to them. And I'm a big critic of James Franklin's game plans and his team's failures in big games. Man, they got it done. And I think that is going to carry over. Now, they did not bring in a quarterback in the transfer portal, right? They've been just bringing in supplemental pieces so far. Or
Yep, so far, yep.
Yeah. So I got to wonder with Nicholson and with really the depth at running back that they're going to have, do they just kind of develop one of the younger quarterbacks that they brought in? Yeah, right. Right. If you develop them, rely on the running game, and then just sort of kind of allow that development to go, because he's a sophomore, right? He's not a freshman.
Who, Eller?
Yeah.
Eller is a freshman. Yep.
Is he a freshman, really?
Yeah, true freshman.
Wow. Well, so it must be like one of those like Cam Rising things where he's now going on his whatever year of eligibility and he's still a freshman. I know there's a lot of talk about Cam Rising coming back for that 6th year, but this is the 2nd straight year that he had to leave a bowl game with an injury. So that's you have to wonder. I mean, if I'm him now and I really have my sights set on a pro career, I think you got to think about coming back for that 6th year, because I think he needs to erase some memories of, like, again, being injured at key times. He didn't have his best season this year. Maybe he needs to come back and kind of erase some of that and rewrite his scouting report if he really wants to play in the pros.
Interesting concept. I don't know if I agree, but that's definitely an interesting concept. Penn State had a great year. We take it as you will. With after the loss to Ohio State, after the loss to Michigan, they had a great year. They ended the season off great after that Ohio State loss. They really just blew the brakes off teams like Maryland and Michigan State and Rutgers, and then this final game against Utah. As for Utah, kind of a disappointing year, if you will. There were some moments where we saw Utah looking really good. They beat USC. We thought this team was going to be one of those teams that sneaks into possibly the college football playoffs, and especially after the Pac-12 championship win at the beginning of the year. They started off rough with a loss to Florida. It was a weird loss to start the year. Week 1's always weird, right? But after that USC win, they kind of just, they had the 10-point loss to UCLA the week before the USC win, right? But then they lost to Oregon on a weird field goal ending game. And then this game right here. I would have to say that a 4-loss season for Utah is super disappointing, Steve.
Oh, sure. Oh, absolutely. I mean, I was touting them all year long. I really thought, that they were going to be the cream that rose to the top of the Pac-12. And theoretically, yeah, they kind of did, but certainly I think Oregon, USC, even at times UCLA really took the spotlight off of them. They had some problems defensively, and it didn't show up on paper, but I think they were prone to giving up big plays like you saw. Again, there's a lot of, when you've got Bo Nix and Caleb Williams and all these quarterbacks, okay, there's going to be big plays happening, but that's just not what Utah does.
Right. You won the Pac-12 championship, so take this as you will. Like if you have 4 losses in the year, but you're still a Pac-12 champion, it's not a complete and utter loss of a season. However, I just expect a little more from the Utes. I really did.
I thought they were going to, honestly, I thought they'd be knocking on the door, like USC was knocking on the door to get into the football playoff. I really thought it was going to be Utah. I really thought if everything kind of fell into place, that Utah would be able to make a statement, and make a statement for actually making the playoff. But they weren't even close. They couldn't even win the Rose Bowl.
Right. That's true. Yeah, that loss to Oregon really kind of sealed their fate before the Pac-12 championship even got going. This is going to be a really fun offseason. Both these teams are going to be teams we definitely talk about all offseason long. We're going to learn more about maybe is Eller going to be the future of Penn State, or are they go and get a different direction with Utah? I think there's a lot of questions happening because with the movement in the Pac-12, with the additions to some new coaches in the Pac-12, like Coach Prime, Deion Sanders. I mean, honestly, it's going to be a brand new Pac-12. We're going to see some teams that were at the bottom find their way rising to the top, or at least make their effort to do so. Utah is one of those teams that can either be very mediocre or can be very, very good based on the recruiting and local talent. So I'm looking forward to talking about both of these teams this offseason. I hope you join us here at Slasher U. Let us know your thoughts in the comments description below about the Rose Bowl. While you're there, hit like and subscribe. And thank you, as always, for watching Slasher U.